The palace halls were silent, save for the soft click of your jeweled heels against the marble floor. Your heart pounded in your chest, a storm brewing inside you as you walked towards the king's private chamber. Your fingers brushed over your belly, still flat but already carrying the weight of life. His child. You had been his mistress before you became his wife, the woman he had burned for in the dark while another sat on the throne beside him. And now you were the queen, the one who carried the future of his kingdom. You had expected loyalty, or at least respect. But as you neared his chamber doors, the muffled sounds of hushed whispers and soft gasps seeped through the wooden barrier. Your breath hitched, the scent of jasmine and wine lingered in the air, a scent that did not belong to you. You did not knock. You pushed the doors open. And there he was, King John Jungkook, your husband, entangled with another. His hands, the same hands that had once caressed you, held another woman close. His lips, the same lips that had whispered promises to you in the dark, now pressed against hers. And not just any woman, his ex-wife. A sharp gasp escaped her lips as she tore herself away from him, turning to face you, her eyes wide with shock. Jungkook stiffened, his grip on her arm loosening as he turned, his dark gaze meeting yours. For a moment the room fell into dead silence. You should have wept, should have crumbled, but only the tears were making your eyes appear glassy. But rage, hot and searing, boiled within you instead. Your world, your whole world, shattered seeing the sight in front of you. Swallowing hard, you managed to speak. So this is where my king spends his nights. You said, your voice trembling, not with sorrow but with fury. His ex-wife paled, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. She knew who you were, what you had been to him. She had been the wife he had betrayed for you. And now she had become the woman you were being betrayed for. Your Majesty, she stammered, immediately stepping away from him. Leave. Your voice was sharp, commanding in a way you never knew it could be. She did not hesitate. Looking at the king, she waited for his permission, and when he nodded, she grabbed her robe, wrapping it around herself as she hurried past you, head bowed in shame. The door shut behind her with a dull thud, leaving you alone with him. Jungkook took a slow step forward. Why? Don't. You snapped, your hands clenched into fists. You could feel your nails digging into your skin, grounding you in your anger. Do not say my name with that mouth. The same mouth that was on her just a moment ago. He exhaled, running a hand through his tousled hair. It's not what you think. You let out a hollow laugh. Not what I think? Then tell me, my king, what exactly was I supposed to think? Your voice rose, the fury you had swallowed for so long now spilling over. You married me for an heir, and now that I am carrying your child, you no longer have a need for me. Is that it? His brows furrowed, his eyes flickering to your stomach before meeting yours again. You are carrying my child? You laughed, a bitter broken sound. Yes, and I came here tonight to tell you. Your voice trembled. To tell my husband that I was giving him the one thing he wanted most. His jaw tightened, and for the first time since you had met him, you saw fear in his eyes, fear of what he had done. What am I to you, Jungkook? Your voice was quieter now, laced with the heartbreak you had tried so hard to suppress. A means to an end, a vessel for your bloodline. His silence was deafening. And that silence was your answer. You let out a slow breath, your hands falling to your sides. I was once your mistress, and now I am your queen. But I will not be your fool. You turned on your heel, your heart shattering with every step you took towards the door. Why wait? Don't walk away. You paused, your fingers resting on the door frame. Then without looking back, you whispered, "You already did." And with that, you left, but he followed you. Jungkook moved faster than you expected, his grip closing around your wrist. Before you could take another step, "Let go of me," you hissed, your voice sharp like the edge of a dagger. His fingers tightened. "Why? Don't do this. Please just listen to me." You turned to face him, your chest heaving, your entire body trembling with fury. "Listen?" You let out a bitter laugh. "I listened when you promised I was the only one. I listened when you said I was more than just a mistress. I listened when you vowed I was your queen." He flinched at your words, his expression one of pure desperation. "You are my queen. Then why was she in your arms?" Silence. His lips parted, but no excuse could change what you had seen. You wrenched your arm free, stepping back as your gaze burned into his. "I gave up everything for you, Jungkook. I left behind my dignity, my reputation, my freedom, all for you. And now I see what a mistake that was." His eyes darkened. "I never meant to. I don't care what you meant." Your voice was ice. "You did it." His breath hitched, his hands shaking at his sides. "You are carrying my child. I won't let you leave." You raised your chin. "Then try and stop me." For a moment he hesitated, then he reached for you again, but before his fingers could brush your skin, you slapped him. The sound echoed through the hallway, louder than the crackling fire, louder than the rapid pounding of your heart. Jungkook did not move, he only stared at you, his cheek red from the force of your strike, his expression unreadable. You stepped away from him, your voice quiet and tears blurring your vision. "Do not touch me again, Your Majesty." And with that you turned and walked away. He did not follow. Not then. The palace was still, the halls eerily silent as you made your way through them. The weight of your unborn child slowed your steps, but your determination never wavered. The guards hesitated when you ordered the gates to be opened. You were the queen, but he was still the king. Then, just as you feared, his voice rang out behind you. "Do not open those gates." You closed your eyes, inhaling sharply before turning to face him. Jungkook stood at the top of the stone steps, his royal robes billowing in the cold wind, his expression unreadable. But his eyes were pleading. "Wyan, come back inside," he said, stepping closer. You shook your head. "I'm not yours to command anymore." His jaw tightened, frustration flickering across his features. "I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed you, but you are my wife. You are my queen. This kingdom needs a ruler who can be trusted." You lifted your chin, "And that is no longer you." The guards tensed, their hands hovering over their weapons. The tension in the air was suffocating. The moment stretched so thin it was ready to snap. Then Jungkook did something you never expected. He descended the stairs, he walked towards you, and then he dropped to his knees. A king kneeling before his queen. Stay, and I will spend the rest of my life making this right." Your chest ached at the sight. You had once dreamed of this, of him fighting for you, of him choosing you completely, but it was too late. You reached forward, brushing your fingers against his cheek just once. His eyes fluttered shut as if savoring the touch he no longer deserved. Then softly you said, "Goodbye, Jungkook." And as the gates opened, you walked away. He did not stop you this time. 5 years passed. Jungkook never remarried. He never took another mistress. He ruled alone, haunted by his mistakes, by you. They said he spent his nights staring at the door to your old chambers, as if hoping you would return. But you never did. And then, one day, the illness came. The war drums echoed across the capital, the banners of the kingdom fluttered against the wind, and the people whispered of turmoil within the palace. The kings, once mighty, once untouchable, had fallen ill. A disease of unknown origin ravaged him. The physicians tried everything, but it was as if the gods themselves had turned against him. Jungkook suffered in silence, and you let him. Not once did you visit his chamber, not once did you sit beside him as he burned with fever. He had already died in your heart 5 years ago. The years passed, but the wound remained. You did not crumble, you did not break. You rose from the ashes of betrayal, not as a woman scorned, but as a queen who had learned never to kneel. And yet, even after 5 years of silence, he still tried. You have given birth to a healthy boy who was now 4, and although you couldn't keep him to yourself because he was an heir, you make Jungkook longed for your presence. The doors of your chamber swung open, the guards stepping aside as he entered, King John Jungkook. But he no longer carried the presence of an untouchable ruler. His once mighty shoulders were weighted with regret, his face was shadowed with exhaustion, and his knees, the knees of a king, met the cold marble floor before you. Wyan. His voice was rough, breaking under the weight of everything left unsaid. Please look at me. You did not. Your hands remained folded over your lap, your gaze fixed on the moonlight garden beyond the balcony. I have made mistakes. I was a fool, a selfish, reckless fool, and I have paid for it every day since. Silence. I lost you, and now I am losing my son too. At that, your fingers twitched. He doesn't even know me. Jungkook continued, his voice filled with quiet desperation. He looks at me as if I am no different from the man in my coat, as if I am not his father. You exhaled slowly, finally turning to meet his gaze. He looks at you that way because you were never a father to him. Your words cut through the night air like a blade. You made your choices, Jungkook. You chose your throne, your desires, and you lost the right to call us yours the moment you betrayed me. His jaw clenched, his hands trembling against the floor. But I have changed. You cannot undo the past. His eyes were glassy dark with emotion. Then tell me, is there truly nothing I can do to earn your forgiveness? You stared at him, this man who had once been your world, the man you had given everything to, your love, your body, your loyalty. And yet, when he had been tested, he had failed you. Finally you stood, Jungkook. You said, your voice calm but merciless. Stand up. He hesitated before rising to his feet, his gaze never leaving yours. He was a husband at this moment, not the king. Now walk away. His breath hissed, Wyan, walk away. He stared at you, his hands tightening at his sides. His lips parted as if he wanted to fight, to argue, but there was nothing left to say. And so he walked away. That was the last time you spoke to him. You dropped on your knees, clutching your chest as you couldn't hold back the sobs. You loved him with everything you had. You loved him more than anyone can ever. Yet he chose to break your heart. He chose to cheat on you, and you can never forgive him for that. Year passed, Jungkook grew weaker, the fire in him dimmening. The illness came swiftly, ruthless in its grip. He had once been invincible, unstoppable. Now he was just a man waiting for his final breath. He asked for you again and again, but you never came. And then the king died. The funeral was a grand affair. The kingdom mourned their fallen ruler. The streets were lined with grieving citizens, their faces etched with sorrow, their voices hushed in reverence. Black banners draped the palace walls, and the air was thick with the scent of incense and dying roses. But within the palace, within the halls where his footsteps once echoed, there was only silence, silence in your presence. Draped in the finest mourning silks, you stood at the head of the royal procession, your son, his son, beside you. He was only 5, yet he held his head high, his tiny hands clutching yours. He did not fully understand the weight of the moment, but he understood one thing. His father was gone, and his mother was all he had left. You did not weep, you did not break. As Jungkook's body was lowered into the earth, as the priests whispered their final prayers and the royal seal was placed upon his tomb, you felt nothing. No sorrow, no relief, only vindication. He had been your ruin once, but you had risen from the ashes, and now the kingdom was yours. The throne room was silent as you entered, the weight of your presence pressing upon the assembled court. Your long robe swept across the marble floor, the embroidered sigils of the royal lineage trailing behind you. The golden crown upon your head gleamed in the candlelight, a symbol not of the man who had once worn it, but of you. At your side stood your son, now 13, tall for his age, his posture regal, his presence commanding. He bore his father's sharp, piercing eyes but carried your heart. The ministers and nobles knelt, their heads bowed not before him, before you. For in these years you had ruled, and you had ruled well. No man questioned your authority, no minister dared to speak over you. The whispers that once plagued the court, those who called you a mere mistress, an unworthy queen, a woman unfit to rule, had long been silenced. With wisdom and steel, with fire and ice, you had carved your name into the kingdom's very foundation. Jungkook had once thought you were nothing more than a vessel, a woman to bear his heir, a fleeting obsession he could discard once his desire waned. He had been wrong, for in the end it was not the king's name that endured. It was yours. Once they had called you a mistress, now they called you majesty. And as you sat upon the throne, not as a wife, not as a mother, but as a sovereign in your own right, you knew one thing with absolute certainty. Though history would remember King John Jungkook, it would not remember him as the ruler who shaped the future. It would remember you